I'm sorry. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so,
Okay.
sorry. Dr. Foster's looking over here. I just looked down at the computer, and I'm like, oh, it's 6 o'clock. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. So we're here to take any comments from the public on our budget. No one here. Mr. Traxton, you want to go over, I think you had a couple of slides to go. Oh, none of them are on there.
All right.
I didn't even notice.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Mr. Lawrence, board members. We leading into tonight's budget hearing, we wanted to give a brief recap of what we presented last month as the first reading of the budget. So I have a very brief, 2 or 3 slide PowerPoint here. So just a first reading recap. We presented that budget on May 12th. We'll bring it next week for final consideration. It included no step increase at this time for any employees. Now that is based on the state freezing the scale for this year. So we were instructed to freeze that step for all employees. There's no cost of living adjustment at this time either. And because of those 2 items, no increases in supplement amounts. We did, however, have an increase in the salaries budget, which may look odd, but the reasons for that were we had some additional teacher allocations. We explained last time the process that we go through. We have 45-minute to an hour meeting with middle and high school principals, and then we meet with elementary principals as a group and look at middle and high school course requests, what their allocations are, what their needs are, what the projected enrollment is for the upcoming year, and increased teacher allocation based on those reviews. The salaries budget also includes the new Excel program that comes into existence next year. But recall that we're flexing funds from our at-risk monies into the general fund to offset those costs. And the third item that really hit this was the exhaustion of the CERDEP carryover. So for several years, we've operated our 4K program off of a carryover, and that carryover has been exhausted. In order to continue to offer the same number of classes, we had to pick some of that up in the general fund. So those are salaries and fringe that moved to the general fund that were reflected. We noted that typically the retirement increases year to year, and retirement was scheduled to increase by 1%. The state suspended that, but that has a little asterisk by it. We recently received an update from people that said that the insurance surcharge component of retirement, which is one of 3 components, will go up by some amount to be announced here soon. We don't know what that is. So while we used an unchanged retirement rate in the first reading of the budget, whenever you see the second reading next week, we will have a slight increase there in the retirement. to accommodate that insurance surcharge. We may know that closer to the end of the month, but not in time for this June 9th second reading. We increased budget for employer health insurance premiums. We received word earlier in the budget process that is projected to increase 6.73%, I think, effective January 1, so we included that. One significant change is that one of our 2 charter schools is leaving district sponsorship next year. So what you'll see is a decrease in some of our revenue tied to a drop in student enrollment, but on the expenditure side, we have less being paid to that charter school as a flow through. Other highlights, we had to pick up tuition and books in this budget for Aiken Scholars Academy juniors who will be attending USC Aiken classes next year. This year, mid-year, we had the addition of 4 school resource officers. We included in the budget some funds to assist with the payment of those law enforcement SROs in our schools. We included the annual cost of the new transportation GIS system that's going into effect that will get off the ground next year. This was also year 3 of the 3-year phase-in of fine arts funding. Year 1 we did high school, year 2 was middle school, and this was the year for elementary school. That closes that out. Those are recurrent funds that will stay in the budget from this point forward. Our budget in the special revenue funds includes one new large item for CARES funding. That's the federal funding tied to coronavirus. We brought a proposal to the board in early May to use a significant portion of those funds for one-to-one technology, and that's how we'll utilize those funds. And as always, we like to mention and highlight that we haven't had a tax increase for our school operating millage since the 13-14 school year. And this proposed budget is the same. We're asking for no change in school operating millage for next year. Overall, our general fund, there's a slight increase, less than 1%, but our preliminary general fund budget was $206,169,000 and change. This was a highly unusual year, of course. The state now is going to start off July 1 operating off of a continuing resolution, so they'll be running off the 1920 budget to start this upcoming school year. They're going to resume the state budget process during the fall. At this point, we don't really know what that holds for us, but it is something that we'll have to monitor. There may be some adjustments that we bring forward based off of those discussions if the state unfreezes the teacher salary scale or some other changes that we need to accommodate. So we may have some additional, I would anticipate some additional budget discussions as they get into their process. We'll provide some updates and likely have some amendments there, but we really won't know until the fall. And that's about it. Next week we'll bring the second reading. There are a couple of tweaks. The big one was the retirement that we increased for that insurance surcharge, and a couple of other minor things. Good. Yes, sir.
Is that surcharge effect if the retiree was just the district?
It's the district's portion. there are three components to retirement, and typically when you hear the state talk about retirement, they're talking about the first two, which is in the 15 or 16% range, and then this insurance surcharge is about another 6% typically. So the part that they've suspended is that 15 or 16%. From our perspective, it's all retirement, and we're paying right around 22% in retirement right now. Mr. Sykes?
A question,
Yes,
if you
sir.
don't mind. Is there anything in the budget planned for an early learning program? By that I mean an alternative to Waterford.
We have the water, all
Yep.
the same stuff.
So,
So the money that was budgeted for Waterford is still
Still there.
in the budget. I was, just telling Mr. Smith, who asked right before the board meeting about our search for that program. So we have an early learning task force of kindergarten, 4K teachers and first grade teachers who've been looking. That process was gonna start the week that we got out, during, this pandemic. But we've been able to meet virtually. We've been looking at programs, and last week, our team decided on a program. We haven't discussed that in senior staff, and we haven't been able to bring that back to y'all, but we do have a decision from that committee that we'll be able to share with you.
well, good. I knew it was off track, that level of detail for this, but at the right
Yes.
time, we will learn about it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Traxton? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Dr. Brett.
We are operating with a pretty large pupil situation relative to what it was in 2008. Financial crisis occurred. Just wondering what I know not in this budget, but just in general, are we looking at trying to do something about that in a meaningful way over time? It was the thing that stimulated, I shouldn't, it's just so stupid. I shouldn't bring this up, but you mentioned we had not had a tax increase since 2003. But if my memory serves correct, the pupil teacher ratio at all levels now is higher than it was in 2010. Lost a lot of funding in 2008, that's why 2008 supported it, we went backwards to 96 actually, I think 92 or something like that. So we took a major step backwards. And that doesn't appear that we recovered in that particular rating. So I'm just trying to plant seeds. Maybe that's something we want to look at for time. Research used to indicate that that's the most important variable in terms of what we can do to make a difference in that, was to reduce the pupil teacher ratio down to 1.4. That's simply the point where reducing pupil teacher ratio.
High school and middle school, we pretty much base everything off of an ideal of 25 to 1. Now, there, give or take, that is an average in the core classes. Elementary ratios are higher than 12 years ago, let's say. But there are times too that, we have some classes, depending on the size of the school, where there are a handful of smaller classrooms, and maybe throughout, because on the elementary levels, students aren't changing classes, so sometimes the numbers just work out there. You know, we corrected to that, and that we had a rule that no class in K through 3 could be over 50, over 60. That was class by class. into the district, and it wasn't because of me, it was just, coincidence with the timing, but about the time the bottom fell out, I think EFA was at its highest point, and we're just now back at that point that we were at in '07. So, yeah, we're still catching up on some things.
Mr. Lawrence had a comment.
And I just wanted to follow up on what Trey said. We have gone up a little, but not an incredible amount. At that time, we were at 22 to 1 in second and third grade, and now our target is 23. And we're actually a little lower, because we were still teetering around 26 in fourth and fifth grade, and just like with middle and high school, our target number is 25 to 1. First grade is where we've seen the biggest growth, and we've gone from 15 to 1 to 18 to 1 there. So, but yeah, it's still a priority to try to keep class sizes down.
I may be misremembering it, but I remember it being something around 15, 16.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not important. What's important, I think, is that we start thinking about trying to find some strategies and ways to get the I think that's one of the things that we can do to make a tremendous impact on students.
Anyone else for questions for Mr. Traxton? All right, I guess hearing none and no input from the public, I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We have to do this on second week.
Yeah, we'll pass it on the ninth, the second.
You don't have to do it, but on each week.
This was just an input. Yeah.
If nobody showed up.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Everyone in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, well then, that's it, and we'll see you next Tuesday. And we will vote to do the second reading on the budget.
Yeah, very glad you came.
The traffic from the pandemic, they change anything at all, because I've seen no reduction in traffic. That's partially why.
I said, you know, me, mine had 6:15, I said,
Well, at least I did get some Jason.